We're here with human rights activist, public speaker, author, Nonie Darwish, author of The Devil We Don't Know, The Dark Side of Revolutions in the Middle East. Nice to speak with you today.
Thank you.
First, tell us about your background.
I was born and raised as a Muslim in Cairo, Egypt. I grew up in the 50s as a child in the Gaza Strip. And my father headed the Egyptian military intelligence in Gaza. Egypt at that time ruled Gaza. So my whole childhood was in the heart of the Arab-Israeli conflict. I was in the direct confrontation on the border between Gaza and Israel. And Egypt had headed the Fida'iyin operations under my father's authority against Israel. The word Fida'i means a man who's ready to self-sacrifice his life. And they entered into Israel, caused as much damage and destruction as possible. And Israel was suffering, of course, from these attacks. And one did try to retaliate, of course, to end it. And they had several assassination attempts on my father to end the Fida'iyin operations. And finally, they succeeded. And my father was killed. I was 8 years old, and I grew up in Gaza elementary schools. We never learned anything about peace or living in peace with the Jewish people. It was all about destroying Israel, destroying the Jews wherever we find them. And peace was never an option. It was all about jihad and martyrdom, unfortunately. And my father was assassinated and killed, and that was a big trauma, of course, in my life. We moved back to Cairo, and the president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, came to our home to pay condolences because my father was a high-ranking officer. And I remember him coming in the home, in our home, and my mom made me and my siblings stand in line to greet President Gamal Abdel Nasser. And I remember him and his entourage asking us, which one of you kids will avenge your father's blood by killing Jews? And I remember very uncomfortable with that question, because it made me feel that if I really love my father, then I must hate Jews, I must want to kill Jews. And that's why I remember that question until today. I lived in Egypt for the next couple of decades and moved to the United States at the end of the year 1978.
What is the purpose of your book, The Devil We Don't Know? The Dark Side of Revolutions in the Middle East.
I wrote The Devil We Don't Know because the world was under the impression that finally the Middle East will have freedom and democracy. Finally, they will get rid of all these dictators. I was looking in Tahrir Square for some signs that will tell me that there is change, that change is coming, true change. But I didn't find it. I was looking for a sign that says separation of mosque and state. I was looking for a sign that says beating of a wife is not a man's legal right. I was looking for a sign that says equal rights under the law for women, equal rights under the law for Christians, non-Muslims. I couldn't find any of that. All I found were quotes that says Mubarak must be gone, Mubarak must leave, which I understand. But the problems of the Middle East are far more complicated than just the removal of a dictator.
Will the Arab Spring bring freedom and democracy to the Muslim world, and why?
There's a cycle of revolutions in all of the Middle East. Every 50, 60 years, you'll find a coup d'etat or a revolution followed by a period of a honeymoon period with the new leader. And then everything collapses and it goes back to dictatorships. In 1952, there was a coup d'etat against a constitutional monarchy that was quite secular in Egypt. And that revolution brought a military rule to Egypt by Gamal Abdel Nasser at that time. Gamal Abdel Nasser in Tahrir Square changed the name of the square from Ismailia Square to Tahrir Square, meaning Freedom Square, symbolizing the new era of freedom. He even changed the Egyptian constitution. He changed the name of Egypt, which is a historical name for 5,000 years. Egypt is no longer called Egypt. It is going to be allied now with Arabia. The name of Egypt at that time was changed to the United Arab Republic, and the historical name of Egypt was removed. He also started a constitution for new flag for Egypt. It was, according to what he says, a new country is born. There was a lot of hope. But what Nasser brought to Egypt was one of the darkest periods of Egyptian history. Nasser turned Egypt into a tyrannical police state. He started a socialist system. He confiscated property of all the talented Egyptians, the hardworking Egyptians. He confiscated their property. A lot of Jews were kicked out of Egypt. A lot of foreigners left the country, and Egypt became an economic basket case, and all Egypt did was go to war after war after war with Israel until the country was completely bankrupt. Unfortunately, revolutions in the Middle East are a cycle of tyranny, dictatorships, and revolutions. And they cannot seem to get themselves out of it.